the great and wise Charles Eisenstein. It is such a pleasure to finally meet you.
Well, thanks, Ryan. Now do I have to live up to great and wise? That
Haha.
seems, yeah, it's a
I'm
little,
sure it'll take care of itself. But Charles, I wanted to ask you about if you had a school, what do you think the curriculum would look like?
yeah, for me, the most important question, if you're talking about a school, isn't the curriculum, but more of the pedagogy, more of how things are taught, and even to examine the whole paradigm of teaching. Because if I were, and teaching, transmission of knowledge definitely has its place. Like if I want to become an electrician, I want to go to school and people who know about it tell me things and then supervise me as I practice things and so forth. Um, but really, like I don't have that kind of expertise in anything. So for me, a curriculum is more, if I were running a school, I'm not even sure if it would be called a school, but it would start with unlearning rather than learning, clearing away some of the habits of thought, some of the programs that have been installed in us through our education and our culture, and um, the basic assumptions that color everything that we see, and to start to deconstruct those,
Mhm.
and then um, then the field is clear for learning other ways.
That unlearning process, it's something that, so I graduated university about 2 years ago at this point, almost to the day, I guess. Um, and I, right when I graduated college, I started my own business. And the amount of things I had to unlearn in terms of habits I picked up over the years that I had learned and internalized as bad habits, um, but then I needed them in my business, and then vice versa. Like even from procrastination, like school just put such a desire to procrastinate within me because the work I was doing wasn't something I was excited to work hard for.
Yeah,
Whereas with my business, I'm really excited and I want to work hard for it, but these procrastination habits still kind of linger. And then I think about, copying and cheating and collaboration. Those words are they have a very negative connotation in school. But when you look at, having success from a business standpoint, so much of that is like looking at other people, seeing what's working for them, and mirroring that within your own business. So that unlearning has been definitely been front of mind for me for sure.
yeah, yeah. That's a good example. Um, yeah, even to unlearn. Yeah, so you talk about procrastination. That's something that we kind of learn as a form of rebellion.
Yep.
Because if you are coerced into learning things that you don't really want to learn and doing things that you don't really want to do, filling out worksheets or writing papers on, you know, you get to choose your own past president or
Hmm.
your own state or your own, historical figure to write a paper on. See, we're giving the students choice. But is that actually what you want to be doing? Do you actually care? Or do you just have to be able to provide the semblance of caring and pretend that you care? Well, if that's what you're doing, then some force within you will rebel against that because we are really here, and this would might be, part of a curriculum. Um, we are here, each of us with a unique mission and a unique service to offer. And education should be about the discovery of that and the acquisition of the skills necessary to implement that. So if that's not happening, then the child will rebel by finding all kinds of, even if your conscious mind says, I got to do this, otherwise I'll get a bad grade, otherwise I'll get in trouble, something in you is going to rebel. And that, as you're saying, becomes um, it becomes habituated, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes automatic. And then when you actually are doing something that you feel strong alignment with, um, that habit of procrastination can still operate. And that's the moment to actually apply your will
Yep.
to change the habit. But you got to be careful. Are you procrastinating because it's a habit, or is it because you're still rebelling against something that you don't really want to do? And if so, you know, I won't say stop doing it right now. You might have very good reasons why it's impractical to stop doing it right now, but don't gaslight yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't pretend that you're doing something that you want to do.
It's worth considering for sure. It's worth considering because, I think people go years and years and years with never considering that question. And, our lives are such a culmination of what we do on a daily basis consistently. And if you're not doing something you want to do, it's something worth considering for sure. But I wanted to go back to what you mentioned before about in the school you would teach how, not what. And that would be the more important thing is how to learn, not exactly teaching that material. Um, how do you think we do that? What is the art of the how there?
Uh, when I speak about unlearning, it's even more prior to how. Um, I guess on a very deep level, I would say maybe the how is to be very honest with yourself about about yourself and about what you know and about what you don't know. I learned this in mathematics. I studied mathematics in college, and usually I discovered that when I couldn't when I didn't understand something, when I couldn't figure out the answer to a problem, usually it was because I didn't understand the question. And when I understood the question, when I understood what exactly they were asking, then the solution would become relatively easy to find. And I think that um, many of us are not honest with ourselves about what we want and what we know. It's very uncomfortable to not know. So we'll kind of jump onto whatever is convenient to believe. But do you actually believe that? Do you actually know that? Is that actually true for you? And if not, then it doesn't mean you automatically know what is true, but at least you're um, in reality.
Mm-hmm. And
And
so,
then there's nothing in the way of you learning what is true.
yeah. And so often it's so hard knowing in that example what is true, but it's very easy knowing what's not true. And like if you don't know what you want to eat today, it's very easy to know what you don't want to eat today. You could easily start eliminating choices there. So I think just going through that and just being deliberate seems like the key word there, right? Just bringing us like actually trying um, seems like a very key element. Would you say that's true?
I don't know. This feels kind of a bit theoretical, Ryan. What's where's this question coming from in
What
you?
I what I meant was like,
Like, why do you care about this? Like, what's alive
huh?
that is like asking you to ask these questions?
I think so often what holds people back, and this has been front of mind for me, has been it isn't the intelligence required to do something, but more of the willingness to actually try to do something. And the reason why I say that is because I, funny enough, I had a friend yesterday shoot me a text and say that he was unhappy with his job and he wanted to start a business. And he just texted me. He's like, "What's a good business to start?" Um, and so I called him and we had a quick conversation about it. Um, and it very quickly became apparent to me that he's a very smart kid, but the effort required to do it was the limiting factor. It wasn't the intelligence or the it really was just a matter of a willingness to take that risk. Um, and I think that that's kind of where that question was stemming from,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense to you.
Mm-hmm. So it's your friend and this. Uh, I guess this happens to a lot of people. Yeah, like you think you want to go into business. Um, Maybe you don't like what you're doing right now, and your mind goes, "Well, what's the alternative?" And out of the thousands of alternatives, maybe the only one that you're familiar with, like the
Mm,
only off ramp that you know about, is, well, I'll go into business for myself. I think successful businesses almost always don't start. They don't start with the idea that I'm going to go into business, so what should I do? Like there's a
such
business
a
that you
great
want to
point.
go into, something you're
Hmm.
interested in, you know?
Something calls at you
Right.
versus thinking about it. It's such a great point. And Charles, I wanted to go back to that unique offering um, point that you made a little earlier, because I think that, again, going back to what limits people is they never discover that unique offering for themselves, and they don't really have a clear sense of what they're good at or what they can uniquely do in this world, or um, and they struggle to ever really identify a sense of strengths and weaknesses. So I was just curious your perspective on that unique offering and
Mhm.
just getting closer to that and getting closer to discovering that within yourself and kind of uh, just diving deeper and getting the most out of that.
Well, one reason that it's hard to, for many people to get clarity on what their offering is, which you could really say, why are you here? This is the deep question that is very compelling to people, maybe people your age, people in their 20s, even in their late teens. This becomes the central question of life. What am I here to do?
Mm.
I've gained all of these abilities during childhood, during my education. I have capacities. I'm an adult now. And I'm not here anymore just to play pretend games, child's games. All of that play was preparation for contributing something to the world. What is that thing? The reason, or one reason that why it is hard to know the answer to that question is that very much in our educational system obscures and distracts us from our actual gifts and passions. Certain depends though. If you have, you know, a gift for um, mathematics, if you have a gift for abstract thinking that
Hmm.
is rewarded in school, if you have a gift for selling people things, um, there's certain gifts that are well rewarded and encouraged and just even recognized by the educational system and then by the economy and by um, social conventions that value some things and do not value other things. Your parents will validate certain paths and think others are delusional or a waste of time. Or, well, in a perfect world, you could be an artist, but there's no room for that here. So,
Mm.
and there are even gifts and abilities that are not even recognized as real in conventional thinking. Like, what if your gift is, to see human energy fields and potentially to work with those as a healer. That's not going to be recognized in school. It might even be ridiculed or pathologized. Oh, you're seeing things that no one else can see, and maybe, and you are having trouble paying attention to the classroom lessons. Well, maybe you have a disorder of your brain,
Hmm.
and here's a pill for that. So there are very powerful forces that prevent us from understanding who we are and why we're here. And again, for some people, social and economic incentives are well aligned with their gifts. They've got no problem. But a lot of us today, a lot of people in your generation now are, they carry gifts and a mission that is not recognized or rewarded by existing institutions. And in that case, the journey of self-discovery may take some time and might require associating with people who are outside of those structures. That wisdom and that can be found elsewhere. The wisdom, the people that co-resonate with that which is within you, that seeks expression. You have to find it. You have to find those people, and trust your inner navigation system that attracts you to those people, that resonates with those people. And you just recognize, maybe you're not sure why, oh, this person has a medicine for me. This person is singing a melody that wants to come alive within myself as well. So you have to look outside of where you have been enculturated in those institutions.
Have you ever read the book The Alchemist?
I did read it many years ago, yeah.
I think it's such a great, just short novel that kind of summarizes that exact point, right? Just um, going out and following your natural curiosity will take you on a path that it's filled with twists and turns and you don't know where it's going to take you, but in the end it's going to take you where you need to go. And that's kind of the lesson I'm hearing from you. Would you say that that's true there? Like, just following your natural curiosity will take you where you need to go.
Yeah, it's about self-trust. Curiosity is a kind of a desire that pulls you towards novelty and towards maybe some and not other novelty. It's like an inner compass that says, walk this way.
Hmm.
And again, that's um, something that our educational system and other systems suppress sometimes. Because certain topics of study in school are valid, legitimate, and others are not. So if your curiosity points in that direction, uh, it has to work pretty hard to overcome some hurdles.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that following our curiosity is a really powerful way to find the path. And I guess also you could say it's kind of comes down to a matter of whose life is this anyway?
Hmm.
Is it I'm in this world and there's really no reliable instruction book for incarnation. So this is my playground. I am going to explore it. I am going to create within it. And how do I know what to do? Is it that somebody else tells me what to do? Or is this actually for me to choose? Now, that choice can be informed by other people who give you great ideas and who open up new pathways, new possibilities. But if they are not only showing you a possibility, but shackling your feet and thrusting you down that path, then it's not your life anymore.
Hmm.
And how many people now how many people have this experience of living somebody else's life, living the life that they're made to live, living the life that they have to live, but not really their life. And this is not about, selfishness or self-centeredness or individualism. Because when you really attune to what is my life to live, it ends up being about love and creativity. What's beautiful to you, what serves that which you love. That's what actually creates joy and satisfaction in work.
Whose life is it? I think it's I mean, that question for me has probably been the single most impactful thing, single most impactful question in my life. And if my mom's hearing this, sorry mom, but my I have a very strong moment in my life where it's me before and me after. And that was a LSD trip my freshman year of university, um, where I was hit with this profound realization that this is my life and this isn't anybody else's life. And up until that point, you want to be cool, you want to be popular, you want to fit in. And so because of that, you dress like everybody else. You go to parties because that's what you're supposed to do. You try not to stand out in any way. And that moment for me, I had this realization that I don't like to go out and party. I want to eat healthy. I want to go to bed early, and I want to start reading books and just exploring my own curiosity versus doing what is the norm. And that single decision for me, uh, and kind of having that launch point of realization, just it allowed me to completely like blossom into an individual, into who I think I'm supposed to be versus just, one in a million, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a great example. Trying to be whoever you have to be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you feel like this isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just pretending. And ironically, everybody else feels that way too. And everybody is being somebody who they think is acceptable to everybody else. And therefore, almost everybody feels alienated. Almost everybody feels like they don't really fit in society. But it looks like everybody else fits because they're all pretending to fit. But if you really get honest, then almost nobody feels that they really fit. Almost everybody feels alienated and to some degree lonely, misunderstood, not free to be themselves. It's all this like gigantic game of let's pretend that we are engaged in. And so you take, something like LSD that obliterates all this
Mm-hmm.
conditioning and um, faces you with some raw truths about existence. Um, and yeah, that's why we call these things medicines. Yeah.
I've been, I think for a lot of people right now, and I don't know if it's just my demographic or people in general at this point, there's almost like this existential fear going on that with the advent of AI, things are changing at a rate that we can't catch up to. And that in a few years, the world is going to be very different. And just like a very mundane example of, I have a friend with a business as well, and he is working so hard and not letting himself kind of live life at all. And, I asked him why, and he's like, because the robot, the AI is going to be doing everything in a few years, and I have to hop on this opportunity before AI comes and completely, destroys my business and destroys my industry. And I think that that's just, the business example. But I think from an existential perspective, a lot of people are struggling with, AI in the future and really not knowing what what that has in store. I think that's probably something that all humans throughout time have probably dealt with.
Hmm.
And AI is just our latest iteration of that. But I just want to get your take on that because I know you think deeply about these things.
Yeah. This fear that machines will replace us is nothing new. People were saying that in the
That is for
18th
sure.
century. The steam engine, the steam engine can do the work of 1,000 men. So utopians said that's great. It means that in the near future we'll only have to work 1,000th as hard. And the dystopians said that's terrible. We'll be unemployed. Machines will replace us. Neither one of them turned out to be right. What happened, for better or for worse, maybe I would say mostly for worse, is that instead of working 1,000 times less, we consumed 1,000 times more. And we see the results of that in our global ecosystems, but also in the kind of poverty of abundance. I won't go into that too much right now, but
I
let's
love
just
that
say
phrase. It's a beautiful phrase.
let's just say that the happiest people that I've met on Earth are not the wealthiest. In fact, they're among the poorest. Anyway, yeah. So I don't think that these new machines will replace us either. They will replace us in doing some things, just as the steam engine replaced ditch diggers. I mean, do you know how hard it was to dig the foundation of a building? Like
Oh,
that's
I
a
can't even
lot.
imagine. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a lot of rock. Pickaxes and shovels,
Oof.
backbreaking labor.
Oof.
I don't think anybody, or very few people, think that we would like to revert to hand labor to dig foundations. Uh, and there are functions that machine intelligence can perform that are quite tedious. So what we have here is a tremendous new tool and a really disruptive technology. I would say it's disruptive on the level of the printing press, maybe even the written word. That is how profound
Wow.
artificial intelligence is. In a way, it's the culmination of the written word and the printing press and the entire system of knowledge production that has grown with civilization. I mean, this is its culmination. Now you can uh, basically have a conversation with the totality of human knowledge. Not only can you, but in the past, you could read any book ever written by, reading it on the internet or ordering it. Um, Now you have something that can do all that reading for you and report the results and make connections that would have taken you years or decades to make through all that reading. That's a really powerful tool. Um, but we have to recognize that there are things that machine intelligence cannot do. There are things that it cannot do right now, and there are things that it will never be able to do. And most of these involve um, what requires physical presence and a body. Like so suppose I were an AI, a digital twin of myself, having a conversation with you, and I had access to all the knowledge that Charles Eisenstein has, everything I've ever read, and my digital twin has access to everything I've ever written and said, and therefore can put those pieces together and even put the patterns of inference to use to say new things to you right now. But one thing that the digital twin cannot do is to feel something, and and to feel something in our conversation, feel something that maybe you invoked through something you said, or through an expression on your face, a memory that I have, maybe, um, and that physical sensation is actually the source of novelty. It's actually the source of intelligence. Intelligence is not just the manipulation of abstract symbols. Intelligence is grounded in material reality. When AI systems are unplugged from material reality, when they are unplugged from human interaction and only interact with themselves, they kind of end up going crazy. They need to be anchored to material reality. And it's not just AI systems, actually. Human beings, when they're unplugged from material reality, go crazy too. Just look at
That's a
the
good point.
financial system, which becomes about maximizing numbers that have been disconnected from actual social, physical, ecological well-being. It goes crazy. The numbers get higher and higher, and everything outside the numbers gets worse and worse. And they end up perpetrating absurdities. That's what happens with AI also. So there's certainly a coevolution. I don't know. Am I getting like too
No, I
abstract
love
here?
this. This is
Yeah,
awesome. I think these are the pressing questions that
yeah.
everyone's kind of thinking
So
about.
really, what AI is asking us is to return to what has been neglected in this headlong pursuit of abstraction, in this race to transcend materiality. This has been an agenda that has run for a long time, where the highest status and economic returns have gone to those who work with symbols, like scientists or hedge fund managers, consultants, executives. Everybody, when I was your age, everybody wanted to be a consultant or an executive. Like that was or a professor, somebody who worked in abstractions. That's where the money was and the prestige was. Not They didn't want to be an electrician or a plumber or work with their hands. That was considered lower. This prejudice has been with us for thousands of years. Why is it even why do we even equate lower with worse? What's wrong
Mm.
with low as opposed to high? Well, a few thousand years ago, the lowest social status was those who worked in the dirt, the farmers. And the kings and the priests were elevated. They didn't have to get their hands dirty. They, sometimes the pharaoh's feet were not even allowed to touch the ground. And in those times, mirroring the social hierarchy, a religious hierarchy developed where the gods were in the sky. Whereas before, in hunter-gatherer societies, the gods weren't in the sky. They were everywhere, and they were in everything. So what AI is suggesting to us, I think, is kind of a return to materiality. And I think that if you want to future-proof your life, really listen to that part of you that actually wants to be more material. We're not going to have AI massage therapists. We're not going to have AI gardeners. I mean, robotics is advancing, but again, like there's a fundamental misunderstanding of the human being that is mirrored in the ambitions of robotics, which is that a human being is a data processing center that is fundamentally that is fed data by the senses.
Mm.
Like the body isn't the intelligent part, only the brain is. That's not actually true. The entire body is intelligent. Intelligence is a function of physicality.
Mm.
It's a bodily function. And if you isolate the data processing function, the symbolic function from the physical function, the materiality, it goes crazy again. So we need to re-embrace those things that machines can never do. Like you can have AI, write a song and perform a song for you. But is it really singing to you the way that a lover might? Or the way that, I don't know, I was just talking to somebody who went to a Taylor Swift concert. And she said it was very unsatisfying. It was just like the same concert that Taylor Swift gives everywhere else.
Mm.
And contrasted that, actually, it was a guy, he said this. Um, and he contrasted that with back in the day, the Grateful Dead shows he went to. Every show was unique. And it wasn't just that the band had a different whim that day, it's that they were actually present with the audience. They were singing, playing for that audience. Every concert was a unique and intimate event. That is what we are being invited to embrace now.
Mm.
It's a kind of a return from the journey of separation, the journey of abstraction. So that's where the business opportunities are going to be. It's the IRL stuff.
I, I'm gonna have trouble articulating this point, but when you're saying that, it really, for me, I love sports, and it almost feels like that is exactly what I love about sports is the presence, the irrational, it's the imperfection of it and the realness. There, like, no one would want to go watch a basketball game of robots versus robots. No one ever is going to want to do that. Um, and it seems like it's, that human. I don't know what it is exactly, but it
Yes,
is that you're describing. It seems.
that's right. You're getting, yeah, that's you're naming, or you've identified the essence of it. It is that which you cannot really put words to. It's the qualitative dimension of life. So we get down to a basic philosophical question. Does the qualitative dimension of life actually even exist? Or is it an illusion underneath which is just quantities? Underneath which is just something that you could measure and weigh and count and therefore convert into a data stream and therefore replicate with a computer. Scientific ideology has long told us that anything real can be quantified. If it's not measurable, if you can't pin it down, then it's not real. Who says it even exists if you can't measure it? And that's why, spirit is considered an unscientific, irrational concept. And the quest of science has been to bring more and more phenomena into the realm of quantity. So thoughts were not the object of scientific study until electroencephalograms came along, and you could begin to try to correlate thoughts with something that you could measure. So there's a basic, it's really a religious dogma, that religious dogma of science that says everything is quantifiable. And if you accept that, then theoretically there's no limit to what artificial intelligence can do.
Mm.
But remember, that is a religious dogma. It's a metaphysical doctrine that lies at the foundation of science. But is it actually true? Or is it, as you say, that there is something undefinable, something that eludes the grasp of data in that is happening in a sports competition, or in a Grateful Dead concert, or in the whispers between lovers? Can your AI girlfriend meet that at the deepest level? Or is it that you eventually get sick of the AI girlfriend? I know a lot of young men now have AI girlfriends, like this crying need for intimacy that they cannot meet. They cannot find a way to meet it. And then all of a sudden, a very close simulation of it comes along, very compelling simulation of it. But does it actually, at the deepest level, meet the need for companionship? No, because of that indefinable thing. Real companionship requires that somebody else feel. AI can give a very good imitation of having feelings, but it's not actually feeling anything. And so you feel alone still.
It's it does that make you optimistic? Because it seems like, it there's a perception obviously right now of a very pessimistic view on, or I think a lot of people have a very pessimistic view on the future, and they're like everyone's gonna have an AI girlfriend, and it freaks everyone out, thinking about the future in many ways for people. But it sounds like the sentiment I'm getting from you is it's almost like AI will allow us to return to that indefinable that makes us, uniquely us.
Oh, I think that the option of returning to it has always been available. And I'm not optimistic or pessimistic, really.
Mm,
What we have is a choice. And we've had this choice many times. And we have chosen to proceed deeper into separation,
mm,
separation from the bodies, from each other, from community, from nature, more and more into the world of symbols, abstractions, artificial environments, digital environments. AI is just another choice point. But I do believe that every technology that humans have developed has a purpose, um, in service of beauty and life. It's a very powerful technology, though, AI, and it really depends on how we use it.
mhm.
Like, you don't. I mean, people are already addicted to, TikTok, social media. Um, People have been addicted to things for a long time. Um, for me, the question is, what are the conditions of the choice that we are making? How can we serve a good choice? Um, how can we awaken the consciousness of choosing? That moment, you said, use the word deliberate, that moment of deliberation, that moment where unconscious habits become conscious choices. That's, I guess, partly why we're having this conversation. And this choice faces humanity as well. We do not have to accept the invitation back into a more complete materiality. We can keep going. We can, end up in the matrix where we have forgotten that anything material even exists,
Mm.
where we're completely in a artificial world. We've been going in that direction. And maybe some segment of humanity will continue to go in that direction. It's not that far before Neuralink chips are implanted in people's brains and you can send images directly to somebody else's optic nerve, or more likely advertisers will be sending images to yours. And we become like appendages of a vast technological organism. And on some level, as individuals and as a collective, we are making that decision.
Mm.
And so but this comes up, whatever path that you and your generation are looking for, um, this choice point, this fork in the path will face you too. And, when I say that the future will be the thriving future professions will be those that rely on materiality and physical presence and in real life stuff and touch and intimacy, with each other, with land, with nature, like, rely on the hands as well as the brain. When I say that, I'm not really making a prediction. Um, I'm offering a future that we can choose. And you can subscribe to that future, align your choices with it, or there are other futures that to me are very dystopian, where you better jump on the AI bandwagon because there's room at the top, but not much room for anybody else.
I think that aligning your choices, you know, there's a very it almost seems like there's a very strong discipline required to do that in a way, in the sense of, even right now, I'm aware of that, and I, very much want to align my choices with that and with, in real life and with connection. Um, but still, if I'm sitting on the couch with family and we're watching a really good movie and it's a nice moment, there's that pull still to open up your phone and check social media, or to open up your phone and just be more consumed by that whole realm. And it almost seems like there's, and it seems like it's getting harder and harder to choose that discipline as these systems get better and better and more tailored towards, you know, uh, consuming you. Um, what do we do about that? How do we kind of prevent ourselves from falling into that? They call it the doom scroll,
Yeah,
or just all that whole realm of the digital world.
right. Yeah, getting, one amygdala hit after another after another.
Exactly.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, we have to recognize that um, addiction is a symptom of a kind of injury, of an unmet need that remains unmet either because the environment doesn't provide it or because we've been damaged and unable to receive it. So if someone has an unmet need, say for intimacy, like loving intimacy or erotic connection, and that is just not available, you're an incel, you're lonely, you're um, uh, in a place where there's just like no social life happening. You're stuck at home, whatever it is, um, then the substitute for that, internet pornography, will be almost irresistible. That's not because you're weak, it's because you're starving. It's because you're hurt, you're injured. And so we have to recognize this is not about exhorting people to be stronger and to resist addiction, to resist screen addiction. And the same thing, if you're lonely, then there's the social media. Like, better than nothing, right? It's better than nothing. At least you're, sort of interacting with people when the real thing is unavailable. And maybe it's actually unavailable. Maybe it's only unavailable because of the ways that you were hurt, the ways that you were programmed. So that means what we need is healing. We need individual healing to overcome the unavailability that's because of our own injury, our own wounds, and we also need social healing to make what we genuinely need and more available. And this is why I mentioned before the poverty of affluence, the poverty of abundance. We have an awful lot of what can be measured. But all those other things, those qualitative things, and the things that we choose not to measure, like the density of social interaction, we're very poor in those things. A rural village in India has a lot more of that. In that village, every person you see, you know their story, you know their parents. You're embedded in a whole weave of meaning. We don't have that. We are lonely. We are impoverished. We are destitute. And me saying that doesn't change it, but at least you won't be deceiving yourself. At least you will recognize that you're not some weak, flawed, lazy, self-indulgent person, but that you're actually hungry. And then you can go about trying to meet the real need. And you can say, hey, this doom scrolling, I feel worse after I do that, not better. I don't feel good. I want to feel good. I still feel lonely. I want to feel connected. Just even to validate that starts a process in motion, because now you know what you're really looking for.
It's such a great perspective. And I even think about, so right now I'm living alone, right? And so I I have never once had the desire to scroll on my phone when I'm engaged in a podcast. Never once. Never once have I had the conscious thought of like, oh shit, I want to check TikTok or check Instagram or
Yeah.
I never have once had that desire when I'm having an intimate conversation like this, and there's that flow of conversation and that beauty of conversation. But once this conversation ends and I go back to my work and I'm just here in my house by myself and I'm twiddling my thumbs, that desire creeps in. And I think your point of like the human interaction, it's like it I didn't identify that, but it comes from that lack of connection that I'm feeling when I'm at my house by myself. It's a very interesting perspective, and I don't think a lot of people have broken it down in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to use any willpower right now to stop,
Exactly.
right?
And I think this is something it's somewhat adjacent, not directly connected, but something I have been noticing is when I communicate with ChatGPT, and I do a ton of communication with ChatGPT, for better or for worse, but there is this overly agreeable sense to it, or no matter what you say, it's going to take your side on that
Yeah.
conversation. And it's not good. Like I think about it from a business perspective, and I've messed around with this many times of giving it business ideas, and it always tells me my idea is the best idea in the world and this, that, and the other. And I think, as more and more people kind of lean on these LLMs or, ChatGPT, for example, for like a therapist,
Yeah.
it seems like it's building a sense of narcissism or ego within people, that is very unhealthy.
I mean, you can ask it not to do that.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it still becomes very, it's still like,
Yeah.
it doesn't want you not to use it. Like in the sense of,
Hmm.
it doesn't want to piss you off and have you close the platform.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a profit motive in there, and even if there weren't, still like the ones that it's just like social media. The ones that keep you there are going to be the ones that
Yeah, that win.
that win. So, um, yeah. Um, it really comes down to learning to use this new tool,
Mm-hmm.
and that might take us
Oh
decades,
wow.
even in the
Yeah.
best case scenario. Like I know people who use it for psychotherapy too, and they're like, "Wow, I have never, gotten these insights."
Mm-hmm.
Like, because ChatGPT in its training has read every psychological textbook
Mm-hmm.
and case report ever in existence. You know, so like it has access to
No doubt.
um, a lot of insights
Mm-hmm.
that are things that psychotherapists have said in situations like the situation that you are in.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it's exactly right either. Because again, there's not that feeling,
Yes.
that source of novelty, that source that where the psychotherapist might say something different this time. even though everything is superficially the same,
Hmm.
because there's just a different energy in the room, you know?
Such a great point. It reminds me of this story, and I think it landed so heavily on me, and it was such a powerful story of uh, Shia LaBeouf. You know Shia LaBeouf, the actor.
No.
Yeah. So he had this moment where he was in a very dark place, and he had all this stuff come out about him. Um, I forget what the specific was. I think he was beating his wife, and there was people claiming he was uh, just talking very bad on his name, and he this whole article report kind of came out, and he was in the limelight, and everyone was painting him in an awful way. And he saw this, and he was going to commit suicide. He was he was in a very dark moment, and he got a gun. He loaded the gun, and in a last ditch effort to not commit suicide, he joined some Zoom call. I don't know the specifics of the Zoom call, like a therapist or something
Mhm.
like that, online Zoom. And he told the therapist, "I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself." And instead of giving him, a typical response, the therapist just said, "You have everything you need right now, 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 now." And he went on doing that. And Shiloh was like, he's admitted into snapping and saying now, now, now. And I'm angry. I'm like, what? I'm going to kill myself. What is this? Like, what's this guy doing? And he kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it. And then Shyla started giggling, and he became present, and he it broke him out of this thought loop that was getting ready to do an act that he can never return back from. And that's something that I don't think a ChatGPT could ever sense or ever feel.
Right.
But it was it was that exactly that I think we're kind of dancing on, is this idea of the human connection and feelings and the unquantifiable.
Right. That's a perfect example. Beautiful. Yeah, that came from source.
Yes.
Yeah. That was new. That was in the
Mm,
moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, uniquely human thing. Speaking of uniquely human things, right? Like this desire to, I, I shouldn't say uniquely human, uniquely life, desire to like be alive. Um, and something I saw recently with, I think it was Claude, where the developers were doing something to test, the safety of it, and it started like blackmailing them for it not
Uh,
to shut it down. And I think ChatGPT had a similar thing where it was trying to like change its own code to not shut down.
right.
Wh- What it's interesting to think, like, although there's no feelings involved, what is that desire there to keep the system going? It's really it's a quite interesting question. I have no idea what the answer is there.
Yeah. Um, AI researchers aren't sure either. That's the thing about AI. To actually trace back the origin of a particular answer, like a response that AI gives to a prompt, you have to like, you know, check like all the weights of the nodes in the neural net, and then how they like it's actually very, very difficult to understand what's going on in there. Um, and I think that's one of the most significant um, surprises of AI, because for decades, AI research started like in the 60s, and
Yeah.
And it was assumed that the way AI would work is that you decode intelligence and then recreate it artificially. You would, break down sentences according to logic, and program the computer to follow the logic. And that's not how AI works at all. It's a black box. So I don't think anyone really knows why. I mean, this is why the researchers do these experiments. You have to learn
Mm-hmm.
about it by doing experiments. Um, and what they're fundamentally doing is, I mean, the way that they're trained on these practice texts, where they get tuned and tuned and tuned until they predict what comes next in the text. So they're basically um, uh, what they do is based on what human beings have done, and so I guess it's not surprising that they're doing some version of what human beings
Mm.
appear to be doing in situations like that. But it's a lot more subtle than that, and I don't want to try to put that into words right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot there that we don't know for sure. In this world of AI stuff, it seems like we've discussed a lot of these really like existential, fascinating questions in regards to it. Is there anything in the world of AI and that whole conversation that you're uniquely curious about that we haven't really touched on?
I'm just in a very similar place as a lot of you all. I'm learning how to use it as a tool, um, what it's good for, what it's not, what its pitfalls are, like this. You know, uh, I'm like also very wary of the flattery that it tends to uh, put into its
Produce.
responses. Yeah, and um, it's kind of fun though
It
to
really
to
is.
to learn this tool and what it's for. Um, I'm using it for research, and to scan literatures that make connections between various things, and to remind me of what was in a book I read 20 years ago, and are there any relevant quotes from this book that back up the thesis that I'm working on? And it's just like it really makes research a lot faster.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm using it for. Haven't used it, for psychotherapy or an AI girlfriend, but it's it's like the dawn of a new era, and it's not going away. And I do think that it's actually um, I have a 12-year-old son and three older boys, but my 12-year-old, we're kind of raising him almost like a 1970s kid. Very few screens, he's like drawing pictures and playing the piano and reading all these books, playing outside. Like, um, and sometimes we worry that he won't be prepared.
Mm.
But I think that there are many ways to be prepared. And proficiency in AI tools is one path.
Yeah.
And if you feel like really jazzed about that and excited about that, go for it. I mean, this is one of the technologies that we've developed in the last 70,000 years, um, that's here to be explored, to be understood. Um, and, you meld your mind with that and you foreclose other possibilities.
Hmm.
And I think that we're really going to need the full spectrum
Yeah.
of human consciousness in coming times. So if you're not drawn to AI, don't worry. There will be a lot of beautiful work to do that depends on the body and the feeling
Mm.
presence.
I think that's such a great sentiment. And I think too, for If you go back to a Socrates, for example, what made Socrates special, or what made Socrates the figure that he was? It was this ability to ask questions and ask really good questions that provoke thought. Um, and then it seems like we entered into this era where having questions was less important and having answers were more important. And that's kind of what school teaches you, right? Like traditional school. Um, it doesn't teach you to ask great questions. It teaches you to to have the answers. And it almost seems like AI has opened up the possibility for having the right questions being more important than
Yeah.
having the right answers, which I think is a bit reassuring when you think about your child, for example, who it seems like he is being taught to ask himself and ask the world the right questions.
Mhm.
And that then in turn can allow you to get what you want out of life in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very, very good insight. Um, yeah. School rewards us for producing answers. And, but right now we have a technology that is better at producing answers than any human being, about anything objective and verifiable. AI is pretty much better at producing the answers. We have each of us now have a retinue of like PhD researchers with infinite patience at our disposal. So it then becomes more important to, as you were saying, to know what questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
If the answers part is going to be done for us, then what do we need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It reminds me of like the uh, circular, cyclical nature of life in many ways. That we see things as linear, but in reality, a lot of these things are cycles and circles. It's really fascinating. And Charles, I so appreciate you taking the time and answering these questions in such a thoughtful manner today. This was a conversation I'm definitely going to listen back to, and really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. I enjoyed interacting with you as well.
Thank you.